Alright, so today we're going to pick up where we left off, try and see if we can get the fender off, maybe even the front. I would like to start with the front and see if I can get that separated, partially because I think that's going to help with a lot of the going forward bits. Specifically, we still need to try and get the inner fender off, and I think if we can get this front off first, I think that'll help a lot with the removal of the other fender and the inner fenders on both sides. So I'm going to take a peek at that, see what we can figure out, start getting stuff disconnected, and we'll go from there. So looking at it, I think I'm going to have to take the passenger side fender off first, mainly just because there's some more stuff connected to the frame and stuff still connected to the fender, so I think I gotta take that off first anyways. So we're just gonna start with that. Hopefully not too complicated despite all the mangle. Since we took the other one off, should be relatively familiar. So we're just gonna start there and go from there. Alright, so I did it. Got that other fender off. A couple differences on this side versus the other. So obviously I had to take out a few less of the bolts and the fender welds because, well, it's smashed. I got a little bit confused, so in the inner fender, and I realized this on the other side a bit too late, but on the inner fender there's a lot of bolts in there, and some of them need to be taken off to get the outer fender off, some of them don't. There are obviously the outer ones, the 5 outer ones, but then there's these 2 holes here that also need to get taken off. This little plastic thingy had to be removed from the outer fender. There's a little bolt here. It was, oh, let me look, because it was a very small one comparatively. It was 5/16. Yeah, 5/16 to get that one off, and then it's got this little, as you can see, it's got a bend in it, so I had to kind of tilt it and pop this lip out and then just slide it out. There's a little bit stuck in there, but luckily it didn't break. The other big thing was the antenna, which was bolted up into there. The long bit screws off. There's a little top cover that screws off, and I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure how this comes out, but I think if you just kind of slowly wedge this part off, you can then go get to the inside of the fender and you can just twist this part until it disconnects, and then you can just pop it out. So that was the other big thing for this fender, but I do have it off. Now I'm just going to try and see if I can get the front off, and then slowly try and work on getting the inner fenders out. One thing with removing the inner fenders is there's all of these wires and things that connect to the inner fenders that run up, these wires that run up into here, and there's also several on this side too. For the most part, most of them look like they just connect with plastic little clippies, but I'll get to those in a bit. But just some stuff to be thinking about for the future of trying to get everything removed. So like I said, next step is I'm going to try and see if I can get the front off. This side already seems to be somewhat loose. I can mostly move this side, but it is connected to the inner fender. So I'm going to have to do a little bit more research and see if I can figure out about either getting it disconnected or if it's easier to just remove what's connected to the inner fenders and just pop all that off as one thing. So I'm going to do some more looking, more investigating, and we'll see where we can get from there. So something I wanted to mention that I didn't really talk about during the actual making of this is the process to get that front clip off. So along the bottom there are 3 bolts on each side that connect to the inner fender, and those are 7/16. There's just the 3 of them. On the passenger side, I had to really kind of fight to get those 3 out, and you'll actually see a bit later we had to fully just take the inner fender off and the front clip in order to get one of them out. But there's just those 3 along the bottom. There's also for most people 2, I believe it's 11/16 bolts that are right underneath the radiator where the radiator would sit, and those are we had to use deep well sockets for those because those are stuck up in there real good, so you'll need those out as well. Otherwise it should just be those 3 on each side and the 2 big ones in the center for a total of 8 to get that front off, and most of what actually holds that front on is its connection to the inner fenders and the outer fender. So sorry I didn't talk about and show that much better, but that's the information. Oh boy, put that hammer down, you crazy fool. Anyways, that's just what I wanted to check in and talk about real quick. Sorry.
Yeah. Why did... That was sort of weird.
Did he not not see the giant red truck that he ran into?
Guess not.
What the heck just happened?
Alright. Now I think if we flip it upside down, the whole thing. Alright. What's the next step, boss? See, this is pretty salvageable.
Okay, well, as you can see, everything's, well, that's not, but that's mostly good enough. Yeah, now I gotta figure out what's next. So, if we get that figured out, we'll pick back up. Otherwise, we won't. Later.